Alright, so boom, we're on day 2 of the Veterinary Odyssey. Now, this morning was filled with great vibes, the music was good, the food was good, breakfast phenomenal, and the plan was all coming together. Now, today, we were going to be flying from one side of the country to the other side in order to get to a national park where we'll be doing our chimpanzee health checks at, doing the blood work, the ultrasounds, all those different types of things. Now, all of that would have been all good and well. However, one thing that I learned while being in Gabon was that you have to be prepared and expect the unexpected, because anything that can happen will absolutely happen. And I mean that wholeheartedly. Like, I don't even know how to describe it beyond that. But case in point, we got to the airport and my flight reservation was accidentally canceled. Now, luckily there was space on the plane, but that was definitely my first scare in the country, and there are many, many more, so make sure that you stay tuned for all those. But thankfully, the team and I ended up making it back to where we needed to go, and after we landed, we decided to make the long drive, which I believe was around a couple of hours. But one thing about Gabon that I noticed right off rip was that the nature is absolutely beautiful and that the lands are untouched. It's one of those places with the most rich rainforest ecosystems, as well as having a very mixed biodiversity because of the proximity of the savanna to the rainforest and the beaches. Like, genuinely, you could see 100 yards and be walking, see a rainforest, then you walk into savannah, back into the rainforest, and then it connects to the coast of the beach. And you see buffaloes, elephants, all different types of animals, all in close proximity. And yeah, it's beautiful, and it's just a case in point to how untouched the country really is. The country has been so purposeful about conservation and being intentional about protecting not only the wildlife directly, but also the habitats and ecosystems of the wildlife. There are so many very stringent regulations on the trees that can get cut down and the lands that can be changed for various industries. And that changes a lot because it actually gives wildlife a chance. Whereas in a lot of other countries, that's not really the priority, to be honest. Now, back to the story, we eventually get to a stopping point and we decide to go on a hike to explore a bit of the nature. And one of the first things that we had to do was cross this handmade rope bridge, which was absolutely bananas. I don't know who convinced me to do it. I don't know what got into me, but I had to trust human engineering, I guess. But this was just another case of one of those moments where I truly believe that when you travel, especially when it comes to traveling out of the country, you have to be open to new experiences and opportunities, regardless of what you're used to doing back at home. Because if not, you're not going to be able to build those core memories and have those experiences that can shift the perspective you have on life. You're not going to actually have the full experience of the country and embracing the culture and the people. Even relating back to what I was saying earlier before with the conservation scene, the hike that we went on showed me how having protected land is an absolute blessing, and it's essential if we want to see ecosystems thrive. You could legit hear so many bird sounds. There was just this sort of naivete that the wildlife had, and that's how it should be. There were layered ecosystems full of biodiversity, and just being in it, I don't know, it just poured back into my cup. And it didn't matter if I was looking down at the river underneath me while I was trying to cross the bridge, or finding different bugs, or seeing the different trees, or the birds flying up above. But that's why, to me, Gabon's approach to conservation is so genuinely unique compared to so many other places. Just as a quick snapshot, there are over 2 million people in Gabon, but about half of the entire population lives in the capital. So everybody else is spread out throughout the rest of the country. And on top of that, there's very limited lodging allowed. And I think it's like a few trees per hectare can get cut down, but just that is absolutely bananas. And if you don't know how to convert hectares to acres, even just think of an acre and only a few trees being able to get cut down in that proximity should tell you a lot. And it makes it so obvious the way that a rule that simple, of course, the enforcement of it and the structure of it does matter, but it changes the pressure that's put on the land. and you can just see it everywhere. And they do the same sort of thing for marine life as well in terms of the protections that the country affords it. And it's something that I truly admire about Gabon. Yet on the flip side, the limited space for agriculture due to all these different productions does end up having an impact on the potential for the agricultural system and its entirety as a whole. It honestly limits the agriculture landscape of the country in order to try and feed the people. So the bushmeat trade does exist, and it's such a complex conservation, especially with me coming from the US, seeing that animals are seen in different lights and in different respects of what is seen as a food animal versus an animal that should be out in the wild and whether we should hunt them or not, as compared to how it is country to country. And it's not to say that any one stance is right or wrong. It's probably somewhere in the middle, per usual. But it's just another thing that comes with the reality of protecting wildlife and protecting nature. And I don't know what's right. Yet, moments when we got to the waterfall, it felt like I was actually able to pause. And it hit me with a wave of stillness after moving so much. I had the space to reflect not only on the effort that it takes to reap some sort of reward, but also the stillness and hands off approach that it requires to let nature thrive and let yourself become with it. So, overall, day one was filled with tons of thoughts, an insane amount of emotions, and many, many stories, whether it was learning about ayahuasca and iboga initiations, or the different trees that can be used for sap or rituals by the local people, or how drones are being used over in Tanzania in order to reduce the human to elephant overlap and conflict. And personally, I'm excited to see how Gabon ends up balancing conservation and ecotourism while continuing to try and improve their country's economy. I really do feel like this beautiful country is the perfect case study to watch and see how we, as a group of people, as the world, can come together and respect and enjoy nature correctly with a long term mindset while also benefiting the community and not exploiting them time and time again. Because that's been the case all over the world. And when we see a piece of nature and we try and speed run the ecotourism side, or we try and develop industries or do all this mining and exploit all the lands and people, it it's not done with a long term mindset in mind. So I'm very, very intrigued on how Gabon ends up, and it ends up incorporating ecotourism within the country. But I can genuinely say that this was the beginning of me realizing that Gabon is the most beautiful place on earth.